Welcome back, everybody, to Unconditional Surrender, a game designed by Salvatore Vasta, published by GMT Games. This is the German Diplomatic Disaster series. We are getting ready to go into April of 1943, and the weather had already been rolled. It was fair in the mild zone, poor and cold in warm zone. So cold in Russia, or poor in Russia, poor in Italy, and fair in Western Europe. And so here we go. Don't think... Yeah, no declarations of war. Economy goes pretty quickly. Germany's at 28. I did it right this time. The Russians are at 40 and the British are at 30. And so we go into strategic warfare. I'm plus 0 to his plus 2. I did not have any subs, so it was up to him to play partisans, which he did. So I'm halved, and I rolled a 1. So he got me down a factory, and then he rolled a 5 for his partisans. And then we go over to the east, or into the west, I should say, and it's plus 2 to plus 3, I believe. Yes. He only has 1 bombed marker this time around. And I don't remember if he had anything to play. He could have played his partisans, and I don't think he chose to do so. So I rolled a 5 plus 2, which is a 7, and he rolled a 5 plus 3, which is an 8. So I didn't get to chip in 1, but I got back to factory. I lost to Russia. Strategic movement. I think... Didn't have one with the East, with the Germans, did I? Actually, I did. I took that off. Oh, that's right. I picked up the Yugoslav that was in Split, since he has no one on ports in the Med, and moved him up to Cherbourg so that he wouldn't have an easy invasion, just, land and march in and have a port. He at least has to roll the dice to take a port. That was my idea there. I don't think he had one. Oh, what am I doing? Hitting the wrong buttons there. Soviets... He didn't have one, so we went to the operations phase. I think we're going to start here in the east. Yep. So took those down. He took down the wrong airplane there. Basically, I have 4 airplanes. He has 4 airplanes. Each of us with 4 sorties and poor weather. It's just a trade-off. Then I moved my flipped over Panzer to be up here where I'm expecting a breakthrough, because he's got these guards units and these shock armies and armor here, so I'm figuring I'm going to have to possibly back this line that's going to get posted here. And then I went down here to the south and declared an assault. The idea here was I wanted to get this guy to retreat, if at all possible. So I started off with 3, 4, I think I'm plus 5, minus 1. And he's plus 1 for combat commitment, which we did go to. He did, I did not. So he became a 2 by throwing in his airplane. And I rolled a 3 plus 4 is a 7. And of course he rolled a 6 plus 2 is an 8, so it wasn't enough to make him retreat. So a bunch of wasted production points there. And move that infantry unit there and move the armored unit there to try and limit his offensive in poor weather. And I think that was it. I'm done. No attacks, just I'm kind of okay in the north. I'm really fragile in the south. There wasn't anything really to do here in the Med. I'm in the best defensive positions I can be in, and I've got my backup units up here. I'm a light in Western Europe, but he only has one real unit he can invade with, the U.S. task force. What are we doing? Oh, I think that we are. I think he's running his airplanes to take down my Italian air here, maybe. Oh no, you let me move my Yugoslav. That's what it was. All right, so since he's attacking me in fair, that's why you see the minuses the way they are. He attacked me in fair weather because it's crossed the line into fair weather in the mild zone. So his 5 + 1 is a 6, and I rolled a 1 on my -2, so he got me with 1 hit. So then he had the 1st Canadian and the BEF go off, and I wasn't thinking here. If I'd have done my math, we did combat commitment, and of course he threw in an airplane and his tank. Not sure which airplane he threw in. Did he not throw in an airplane? It was 1, 2, 3, 4, -2, +2, 2 + 3. Maybe he didn't throw an airplane. And then I rolled a 6 + 3. So 5 to a 9 stopped him there. But I committed the tank, and I shouldn't have committed the tank. I should have been thinking, which I was not. Next up, he comes up with a bombed marker, so I go after him. I'm at +2, and he was at minus a bunch. He's at actually net -1. And I only rolled a 5. He rolled a 4, -1 is a 3. So that stopped that, and he took 2 sorties. And then he came again, and I attacked him again. And I only rolled a 1. +1 is a 2, so he got there. Then the Americans came, and I went ahead and tried it there. Only got a 3, but he rolled a 1, so I got 2 sorties on the Americans and stopped that. Oh, why he keeps moving the air damn bomber? And then he came in with another American, and I let him go. I have no idea what's going on here. Just a whole lot of counters moving around for no apparent reason. And then he came in with the Brits, and I attacked him, I think, 1 more time, and failed with a 1 -1. So he just got through. I didn't see any reason to keep going. Stuff is just, I don't know what he's doing there. I don't know what that 1 was for. Oh, I'm a little confused there. I have no idea what his attack die rolls are. And then he brought the American fleet into Southampton. And this is him discussing with me how to do this invasion. So I was like, well, that's doable, but you have to, do things in order. So we kind of put things back out of the way. He put down his airdrop and his paradrop marker, put out a surprise attack marker. Came down with the guy out of Liverpool to invade adjacent to Brest. Adds his tanks and an airplane from Plymouth. So when you do the calculations, the Germans are actually a net -2. So I started off at +2, -2 for the paradrop, -2 for the partisans. He starts off at a -1, +2 for a tank, +2 for Navy, +2 for Air Force, then -2 because he's attacking a unit in a city on an invasion. The city's -1 and the unit's another -1 because he's attacking on an invasion. So it's +3 to -2. And he rolled an 8. And I rolled a 4. -2 is a 2, so not only was I retreated, but I was flipped. And then we discussed whether he should take the hex or not. I said, well, if you do, you can't bring the Americans in. I said, you can at least have the Americans come in and invade in Brest, and then they can attack that unit. And whether they succeed or not doesn't really matter. It means you have a real unit in holding the port in Brest. And so that's what he does next. He plays another surprise attack marker. We talked about you're supposed to put it on a hex. I really wish Sal would change that rule, that the surprise attack marker gets placed in the C zone that you're doing. If it's a C zone surprise attack marker, put it in the C zone so everybody knows that it's an invasion thing. It's not usable on land. But that's just what we do as sort of a house rule. Make sure that we can distinguish ones that are being used, because I've done it sometimes when I've invaded with 2 surprise attack markers, and I have my 3rd surprise attack marker actually sitting on land and happens to be on a coastal hex, so now you have to remember which one's invasion and which one's not. If I put it in the C zone, no confusion. So he brings the Americans down, and I tried to intercept him in C zone 7 because he had a sortie on him, so he's only at +2. So he's +1 for the sortie, -1 for the +2 because he's American, -1 for the sortie, and then +1 for the surprise attack marker. So he's a +2 and I'm a +1. So it's setting the die rolls. So hoping to get a really good split here, and I rolled a 2. He didn't roll any better than me. He rolled a 1, but So I come back in 2 turns, and his invasion will succeed. And then he will attack the infantry unit. So he adds the sortie, adds his tanks. Ostensibly, he did this so he could use the tanks marker, because he's got an upgrade. If you look on his card, he's got the upgrade counter for that U.S. unit, so he wanted to use the tanks marker at least once. So he's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. He only used 4. He didn't run his airplane. He used it for because he used his airplane for escort. He couldn't use it in the attack. That's why. That airplane was actually escorting the fleet in C-Zone 10, and from what I understand, once you do an escort, you can't be used in the same resolution of amphibious assault to be used in ground support. So 6 plus 4, I mean, he can't roll any worse, a 10, and I rolled a 4, which on the combat result table, it has into a 4, is a DD. So poof, there's a willpower, and he takes the hex, so that he's kind of bracketing Brest and keeping me from just running in and grabbing it. And put his fleet in there. They moved this British convoy to end up in... he wanted it to be in Gibraltar so that he could do things with the Gibraltar guy for invasions, I think, in the future. And I think that was the end of his turn. So took off the surprise attack markers. We put those out there. I'm not sure if he did his supply, but he rolled his dice. That was, he did partisan first for 5, and then the airdrop came back in 1. So, and then he did his supply. He wanted to move that unit, and I said no because he'd already rolled the dice on the... If he hadn't rolled the dice on the partisan and the paratrooper, I would have allowed it because he wouldn't know whether they're coming back or not. But he knew now that he's getting the paratrooper next turn, and I said no. It's too much information for you to be able to suddenly decide to move a unit that you didn't move earlier. So, it just runs up his supply. And we put a control marker in there, and we go over to the Soviets. And the Soviets immediately place their, since they had 2 partisans, they place another one in Nostrик. The tank army, the infantry, and the shock attack. Along with his airplane, I believe, because I don't have anything I can play. So, I didn't do that right. I should be at 1, not at 0. God. So I should be 2 for German, 1 for armor, because it's poor over here, not severe. So, that was a mistake again on my part. So he is 1 for the armor. He added 2 for the tank and 2 for the shock, so that was 5. And he should be -2. And he adds in an airplane. So it ends up at +4, but it should be +4 to +1. There we go. So I was up to 3, and then -2 for the partisan. So and again, he rolls a 6 +4, so 10. I rolled a 5, so at least I wasn't DD'd, but I am flipped. So now I will be -1, I believe. He activates his tank army, which has 1 for tank, 1 for elite. And I think he throws in his airplane because he ends up being -3. Because it's 1 for city, 1 for weather, and 1 for the river. And then we just went through the math to make sure I got my numbers right. He rolled a 5. I rolled a 5 -1 is a 4, which was enough to not have me die. And then he comes over with the guards unit, throws a tanks army on it, so he's 1 + 1 is 2. And then I think he subtracts 2, so I think he goes at me at 0 to +2. What is he doing? Oh, he decided to not do that. Instead, he went up against the Panzer up by Kiev. So I'm a 3. He's a 1. +2 is 3, 4, -1. +3 to +3. He rolled a 7, and I rolled a 9. And then, of course, he's trying to break across the central Dnieper here. Northern Dnieper, I guess. And he's 1, 2, 3, 4, -2. Throws in a tank, so now he's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, -2. So that's +3 to +2. And he rolled a 3 + 3 is a 6. I rolled a 3 + 2 is a 5, so just enough to hold. And then he does his attack up here on the swamps. He's 1. He was having a terrible time activating them. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, -2. So he's +2 to my +2. He rolled a 5. I rolled a 1 + 2 is a 3, so it's enough to force me to retreat, which is what he wanted. And then he did this attack to make the 17th retreat. He's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, minus 2, should be plus 3. To plus 2. He rolled a 6, plus 3 is a 9. I rolled a 4, plus 2 is a 6, so actually I said, oh, I can't retreat, I have to be flipped. And then I said, no, wait a minute, I can retreat. Because I can choose to retreat from any one of these units. So I choose to retreat from the armor. It gives me a space between the guy I choose to retreat from, and I'm allowed to retreat into a controlled city, even though it's in his own control of one of the units. So, and he went ahead and trying to figure out how he wanted to take it. He decided to move a different shock army in there so that he could attack. And he decided, no, I'll just take it with the armored unit. He didn't want to spend the points. And then he wanted to come down here, and he takes a pot shot, 0 it to 2. So he rolled a 3. I rolled a 2 plus 2 is a 4, so that didn't work. And then I think he was done. Nobody had a no supply issue. German replacements. On my national tracks, you'll see that I had 19. Actually, I think I had more than that. I thought I had more than 19. So I flipped over that for 2. I spent them all, but I'm not sure what I did here. I flipped over something else, I think. It's 15, 16, 17. I had 2 more points, and I don't know. I'm not sure what I did here. I had 2 more points, and I don't know what I used them on. I think I used 1 here on this infantry. I'm really confused. So here's him just getting all of his stuff back in the West. Soviets get back their airplanes. And then we got into upgrade phase, and he upgraded his task force to the armored unit. Soviets had a tank army that they just decided to make into a guards tank army. And now the West, the thing he didn't do, you'll notice he didn't spend, whoops, wrong thing. He didn't do a lot of replenishment down here in Italy and stuff. And he did that for a reason, because with 20 points, it's 21 actually, he's able to build his surprise attack marker. So he builds that. Of course, the US can always build theirs. And so we'll have them back in 4 turns. May, June, July, August. And the Soviets, I don't think they had anything to mobilize. So we skip through the diplomacy phase, we go to the end of turn phase, where, again, mostly his stuff. He starts getting things back. I get a unit to build. He gets partisans and his tanks markers. Gets his airdrop marker back. And heavy artillery. And we go into May. So we go into the weather phase. And we would roll. A 646. And since we are doing May, it's just a straight die roll. A 6 is poor. A 4 is poor. And a 6 is poor. So it's poor everywhere. Nobody did declarations of war. I'm going to do economies. I'm still where I was at last time. And the British are actually up by 2. So they're up to 32. And we go into strategic warfare. He has a partisans to play for the Russians. And I have submarines. So I think we go to combat commitment here. We both committed. So his partisans, my subs. So we roll. I roll a grand 1, which stays a 1. He rolls a 5 plus 2, which is enough to ship me a factory again. I rolled a 6, he rolled a 5, so... And he's at 4, 5, and I'm at 0 because I have nothing. And I rolled a 5, and he rolled a 2 plus 5 is a 7, which was just enough for me to chip back my factory, so I got lucky die roll. That he didn't roll fairly high. Strategic movement for the Axis. He's invaded France, so I picked up the guy that was on the mountain range there, and he comes flying over here to help bottle up the Brittany Peninsula. The West didn't have one. The Soviets, what did they do? They didn't take one either. And we went back, and we went on to operations phase. So once again, in poor weather, I don't want to give him the bonus of the airplanes, so I'm just trying to negate them as much as I can. So now the German 9th Army comes a marching in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Assaults there. Yugoslav out of Cherbourg goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And assaults there. I think we go ahead and resolve this. We're in combat commitment, which, you know, no brainer, we're both submitting. I threw my tanks and my ground support here, trying to make sure that I could get that multi-unit. So started off as +2 for German, +1 for a tank, and then +1 for the buddy and +1 for the ground support, and then -1 for the weather. He threw in a tank, so he starts off at so he was -1, and then he gets +1 for the tank and +1 for the airplane. So he ends up at a net +1. And I rolled a 4 + 4 is an 8, so I was like, oh, I'm afraid he's going to get a DR or whatever and just retreat into Brest, just like I had done over in Belaluki. And he was nice enough to roll me a 1, so that he ended up with a DD result. So he got eliminated. Took it with the Yugoslav, I believe. No, I didn't. No, I didn't even take it with the Super. Didn't take the hex. Stayed there. Then went 1, 2, 3, 4. Make the Americans go away. And I think he sent the American convoy down here to Palermo. Not quite sure why, but I called for an assault, thought about it, said, nah, not even going to bother. And then I moved this garrison down here because he doesn't have any assault surprise attack markers for another 3-4 more turns till August. So I figured I wanted to have enough down here to try and do a rolling assault on this 5th Army of the U.S. to try and get rid of it. And then over in the east, what did I do? Did I do anything? Oh, I retreated away from adjacent to Leningrad so that he wouldn't be able to get some kind of a surrounded on me. And down here in the south, we tried it again. Don't have anything to add to it this time, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, minus 1. Should be plus 4 to his plus 2 because he throws in an airplane. I rolled a 6 plus 4 was a 10, and he rolled a 6 plus 2 is an 8, which, on the command 10 to 8 is enough for him to say, no, I'm not going to give you that space. Just not getting the splits. And then I move the Romanian up for future defensive purposes. And I'm pretty sure I'm done. Yeah, I was done. I saved as many points as I could. I got 21. So that lets me flip over some guys and still bring back some airplanes, was the idea. So he has the 1st Canadian. I think we've all seen this before. It's the 1st Canadian. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, minus 1 for the mountains, 1 for the weather, 1 for the river. So it's minus 3. So it's plus 2 to plus 2. He rolled a 6 plus 2. I mean, how many 6s can he roll early on here? It's just hurting really bad. And I only rolled a 2, so I'm retreated. And he's broken across the Tiber. And he thought about moving in there to do an assault. Said, that's not really that great of an attack, is it? And I think he just decided to not do that. He went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 to assault there, and then moves this guy up to assault. And he did not have another tanks marker, so he did throw in an airplane, so he ended up at 1, 2, 3, 4, minus 2. 1 for the weather, 1 for the rough terrain. 2, my plus 3. Plus 2 to plus 3. He rolled a 5, and I rolled a 2 plus 3, 5 net. So 2 5 nets, and we didn't go anywhere. Then he comes over and says, well, got to try and get my supply line back. So this guy's assaulting. He starts off at 1 for American, 1 for armor. He throws in his airplane, which is down here. So he becomes 3, and then he's minus 2. 1 for Brest and 1 for the weather. And then he threw in 3 forces, so he'd get back up to a plus 4, minus 2, so he's plus 2. And I start off at minus 2. I did not have a thing. So he rolled a 4 plus 2 is a 6. And I rolled a 5 minus 2 is a 3. So I'm only retreated. So I didn't actually lose the Yugoslav unit. And then he takes the hex back. And then he rolls a 5 for his Western Free Forces counter. So it's not coming back for a little while. And then he moves the British convoy into. Going to use it for supply. Now he's coming in with bombers. I don't remember which one he activated first. I just let him go. He's moving his bomber again. And he started thinking I was going to intercept him or whatever, and I said, nope, just go. He's done 2. And he stopped there because he wanted to. Yeah, because he didn't bring down his bomber last turn, so he used the American there for those 2 bombs, and now they're both at 5s, and he said, I just want to stop there. So now we go over to the Soviets. All sorts of terrible things going to happen to me here. So he brings the tank up, assaults, adds in that guy too. So he starts off at like 2 plus 2, because this guy over here is worth 2. So that's like 4 minus 2, so he's plus 2 to begin with. So it should be plus 2 to plus 2. And he rolls a 6 plus 2. Again, another 6. So my 3 plus 2 is a 5, which is a retreat. And I retreat there. Everybody might say, huh, what? What are you doing? It's like, I'm trying to keep the 1st Panzer from being isolated. If I retreat back here, he takes the hex, the 1st Panzer is isolated, and these guys all get, and they're assaulting him, they get plus 2, and it's just not worth it. So. And so he moves that in, then this infantry moves up and joins in with these guys. He's like 1, 2, 3. I think he throws in a tank. Yeah, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 minus 1, so it's plus 4 to plus 3. Why is he at plus 5? He's not at plus 5. He's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He was not at plus 5. He was at plus 3. Either way, he didn't force me to move, but that was us making a mistake again. And then he goes after the Depnostric guy, so it's 1 for the armor, 2, 3. Throws in his airplane. And another tanks. So he's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, minus 2. And once again, then he throws in his heavy artillery, which puts him up to 8, minus 2. So now he's plus 6 to plus 3. Rolls a 4 plus 6 is a 10. Rolled a 5 plus 3 is an 8, which we've seen him do to me. It's enough to just not make me move. And his heavy artillery comes back in 2 turns. This guy moves up, decides to not attack. And then he goes again. He's trying to get across this river. He should be 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, minus 2. Should be plus 2 unless he throws a tank. Nope, just went 2 to 2, 3, 2, and I rolled a 5. Plus 2 is a 7, so stop that. And then he moved up and went after the guy that's not in any kind of terrain, so he's 1, 2, minus 1, so he's plus 1 to my plus 2. He rolled a 2, I rolled a 5, so that stopped that. And then he tried to do the swamp hex, so he's 1, plus 2 is 3, minus 2, so he should be plus 1 to plus 2. He rolls a 4, plus 1 is a 5, but I rolled a 3, so I'm forced to retreat, so he gets another space. And then he moves up to there, and I think he's done because he needs to save points to do his airplanes. And we go through the no supply phase, replacements for the Germans. I expected to have some more flipped units than what actually happened here. And I think I don't have anything flipped to actually mess with, so I think I just bring down all 6 of my aircraft. Which is a rarity for the Germans to be able to do when they're in this kind of straits. So I did the... And in the west, now they can spend points, so bring down their bombers, their fighters, and their convoys. And reminding him to do his Americans. And then the Soviets do their airplanes. Dun, 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 dun. Upgrades. Did the Soviets upgrade? No, they didn't. mobilization, the Axis actually has 3 points left, and so they go ahead and build their Africa Army and their infantry, because God knows if I'll ever be able to build them again. Put the Africa Army in Aachen and the infantry in Metz. And just told him I moved the bomb marker so that he would be able to find it next phase. And we just go into end of turn phase. Again, way big stack for him, very little for the Germans. They get a tank, surface action, another infantry to build, and a ground support. And then he gets Russian tanks, British tanks, a couple of ultras, I think. Yes. And American convoy coming. So he's got lots of stuff going for him here. And it is now June. As is our wont, I believe we end the turn here, so we're going to be doing the weather phase. And we roll the dice. 4, 5, and 3. Since you have to go with what the weather was before, so it was poor everywhere. So in with 4 in the cold zone, since it was poor previously, a 4 actually gives him fair in the cold zone, so it's fair in Russia. And then it's a 5 in the mild zone. You have to go to the fair line, and a 5 in the mild zone actually makes it poor in the mild zone. And then in the warm zone, a 3, when it was poor before, makes it fair. So he's got fair in Italy, fair in Russia, and poor to have his guy hold out in Brest. Couldn't ask for much better weather die rolls for the West, for the Allies. Guarantees that he's going to have 4 fair weather turns in Italy, 4 fair weather turns in Russia, and then he'll have 3 in Western Europe, but I don't know if he's going to get enough units based on when stuff comes in for turns. He doesn't really get any ground units other than the garrisons he has floating around for a while. I think it's... I don't know when he rolls again for the Americans. When does he roll? Should be another roll in here somewhere for the Americans. I'm not sure when the Americans roll again. I think we don't have the Americans on the turn track here for some reason, which I will fix before we play again. And there you are. We're done. So that's April and May of 1943. The United States has invaded and is still hanging on at Brest in France, in Brittany. He's broken the Tiber, so he's broken my next line of defense. And he's got fair weather, which means he's going to be able to make multiple attacks to try and keep pushing these guys back, so I'm going to have to do something about that. And, of course, in the east, I'm kind of all tied up every which way because of his, his advances here. He's got this 1st Panzer cut off, the 4th Panzer cut off in Nostrик, threatening to, basically just overrun the entire Ukraine here. So I'm going to have to do something about that. So we'll have to see what I can come up with. I don't see a whole lot I can do right now. But we'll think about it and see what we can do before we have our next session. Anyway, like I said, that's April and May of 1943. I'm Dren608. If you like my videos, please subscribe. Hit that like button. It keeps the algorithm happy in YouTube. Keeps it up here for everybody to find. Leave me comments. We will respond back. Both I and my opponent, I think, he's started to watch these and will respond to comments as well. And until we meet again, stay safe and bye-bye.